Fire! Fetch the buckets!
There's smoke coming in under the door.
Quickly, we'll have to leave the way we came in. Yarr! Jasper, you help Ada.
Thank you.
Yarr! Gemini, you're next.
One moment. Let me unlock my safe.
You fool! We must go now!
There's over 500 thrones in there.
What good are 500 phones to Ada when she's an orphan?
Fine. But if you cross me and I'll...
You'll do nothing! The listener and I will be right behind you. Now move!
Hello and welcome to the Lark News podcast. This is a continuing in our nation's episode. We've now moved on to the Orcs, and we're going to have this is a second attempt at the episode due to a few technical issues, but we're going to jump straight into it. Chloe, would you please introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do for the Orcs?
My name is Chloe. I play Bloodcrow Aurora, who is a young Bloodcrow shaman. She is also a winter ritualist, and she is part of the First Legion. Oh, and she also pit fights and has a stick that's also her wife. It's a whole thing.
Right. Sammy?
Hello, my name is Sammy. I play Ashbourne Bull. I am the current reigning, defending pit fighting champion, and that's pretty much all I do.
Nice.
Aw.
We're going to go... Let's start with history. We tried this before, and now I think we there was... a little hesitant at first, but I think this time, Chloe, take it away. Give us the full history. Now you're all clued up on what happened to the Orcs and how we got to where we are now.
Funnily enough, since we started talking about it, suddenly my brain's like, oh my god, I remember everything.
I think this is a thing though, right? We haven't LARPed in such a long time that your brain has to kind of like shift back into that gear sometimes. So yeah, apologies if sometimes we sound a little bit rusty, but I think that little warm up actually has done us a lot of good. So yeah, without further ado, Chloe, tell us the history of the Orcs.
So again, like it's been a while, but my sort of like rough memory of it, and I guess it's what Aurora would know is kind of the way that I look at it, is that the Orcs originally were barbarian tribes surrounding the area where the humans lived in, and I believe this was at the time where the Empire was a thing. However, there were only 8 nations, not the 10 that we have now, and they basically stole Orcs from the barbarian tribes and took them as slaves. And then the slaves were like, actually, this is a bit crap. I'm kind of fed up with this. And started a massive rebellion. And there was 2 rebellions. One, I believe, was in the north and one was in the south. And that's why we've got the 2 separate legions, is to do with that. And like the northern orcs sort of went off into, I believe it was like Skarsund that way. And then the other orcs went south, which was the second legion. And then I believe the reason we came back and were like, actually, we want to be part of the Empire is because when we tried to go back to the barbarian tribes, they were like, no, you're not one of us anymore, you're one of them, like we don't want anything of you. So we went back, and I believe it was a Brass Coast emperor or empress that helped us become part of the nation.
Sammy, what is that? How would you rate?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much how I would throw it down. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more nitty gritty stuff within there. Deals were made, brokered, and you had people like Thrace and all these other juicy history things. To be fair, I had to sit down and read a lot of it a couple months ago. It's definitely worth a read, but Chloe's kind of summary of it there is pretty spot on.
Yeah, as with most nations, the history is dense. There is a wiki that is intimidatingly large and is almost impossible for anyone to single-handedly read it. So there's a lot out there to look into, but I think that's a really nice overview and kind of setup for kind of where the Orcs are now as a kind of nation at Empire. So what's it like being an Orc? Let's start there. Like let's go for that.
Sammy, do you want to go first this time, because I spoke first last time?
Of course. Thank you very much for being so gracious. Being an Orc, it's sweaty. That's
Yeah.
thing. It's sweat. If you ever want to like lose weight in a healthy way, put on an Orc outfit and run around a field all weekend, you will come back lighter than you went there. It's before I started Empire, I was always told that by playing an Orc, it's playing hard mode, because you naturally put yourself on the back foot by putting a latex mask on your face and covering yourself in furs. So it's a difficult mindset to get in, but once you're there, once you meet everyone and you kind of start building friendships, it's one of the most rewardingest characters to play.
I feel like that mask is like a double-edged sword, right? Like one, it's gonna be sweaty as hell under there the entire time. On the other hand, it's like it can give you distance from who you're talking to, right? Like and help you RP. I could imagine putting. It certainly does when I'm putting it on to go monster. Let me put it that way.
I I I think it's different for everybody, because a lot of people like I'm a really good example actually. I used to suffer with like crippling social anxiety when I came to the Orcs, and I want to say that was like 3 or 4 years ago, which was a long time ago. And for me, the mask really helped. But now, as I've sort of grown up and I've kind of dealt with a lot of those issues, I found that the mask kind of just helps me amplify everything. Like it becomes a tool, and it kind of helps me like. If I don't look like my face, so no one knows who I am underneath, it's so much easier to be this crazy little orc who is absolutely crazy and just on another level of weird because it's not actually my face they're looking at. But
That makes a lot of sense to
yeah,
me.
and like I think as well, like it's weird. I kind of forget I'm wearing it sometimes. I go to the bathroom, look in the mirror, and I'm like, oh, I'm just me. I'm just dressed as an orc. It's fine. Like I think it kind of helps you get into it. But then there are moments where you'll be on running around the field and you're there like my face is all water. I hate this.
Well, do you? Is there any like mask advice? Like talc? Is that just asking for trouble? Do you know what I just thought of? Is that episode of Friends where Ross, with his leather trousers, tries to use talc? That's how I imagine talc in an orc mask going. Is it like what? Is there any advice?
I I don't know, to be honest. I think it depends. Like I've got like the world's smallest head, so every single mask like fits me fine, and because there's wiggle room. Like I know a few people that have got like longer hair wear like balaclavas, so it stops sticking to the hair. Like obviously, I used to have really really long hair, and I used to get Andy to French braid it so it would sit out of my way. But then some people shave their head before the event because that's easier for them. I'm not sure about talcum powder because I know certain things can eat the latex. Like I originally got my mask from Mandala like 4 years ago, and it's in pretty good condition. But whatever I was using to clean my face with has gotten onto my mask and it started to eat away at the latex. So I'm not
Interesting.
sure about that. I know you definitely shouldn't use hairspray to fix your makeup. That can damage the latex. But again, it's different. Each mask is made differently. Like I think everyone's got their like personal tips, so I don't want to speak for everybody in that sense. Like I don't know, Sammy, if you've got any tips with your mask. Mine's just like make sure I clean it all of the time.
I mean, I got when I first bought Bull's face, I was told that'll last you 2 years maximum, and I was like, oh man, that's quite a lot to drop because masks are actually quite expensive.
Oh god, yeah,
Hmm.
they're so expensive.
And I was like, oh, you know what? I really want to play this character, so you know what? I'm just going to throw the money down. And I was super paranoid um, for the longest time, and I was super careful with it and everything like that. But it's inevitable that it's going to be damaged, it's going to break. And there's some people out there who can actually fix them for you. Like I've had the bottom part around the neck, I've had that reinforced because that started to go. One of the things I guess my personal tip is at the end of the day, turn your mask inside out
Oh, definitely,
and
yeah.
let it dry out that way.
Mm.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. I didn't even think of that.
it's because the thing is, you don't want to start. You don't, for one, you don't want to leave it inside out, lying on the floor of your tent because it's just not going to be nice in the morning. And also, when you wake up, you can put on a nice fresh mask that is dry. So yeah, that's kind of my little tip.
Like I bought mine at LARPCon last year before the pandemic started. So I've got it and I haven't had an opportunity to use it yet. But I need to figure out whether I'm gonna put in little glasses holes in it or not. I don't know whether that's a good idea or not, but yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with that.
I mean, it's really fun. Like, it sounds really weird, but I love having the masks because it allows everyone to be very creative. Because you'll look at masks and you can tell who's been there for who's their first event because usually their masks all look the same. So when I
Hmm.
first started, there was 4 people with the same face
Mm.
because we'd all bought mandala ones.
Yeah.
Uh, and then immediately after, so the second event, suddenly everyone looked different. because people would put face paint on,
Yeah.
or people would put glasses, or people would add like crowns, or people would add jewelry or piercings, and it's interchangeable, really.
That's
mean,
cool.
I actually have one of the most like common masks. I've got the mandala. I believe it's the rogue mask.
Mm.
It's the one that's, and I'm going to say this with air quotes, suggested for women. I think that's rubbish, but it was something I was told when I bought my mask at the time. And I knew kind of a lot of people had it at the time because I used to play Winter Marker before I came, and I kind of got friendly with the Orcs before I came over. So I stuck hair to my mask and then braided loads of dreads in, and then I now have a massive amount of dreads on my hair. So I feel like doing that makes me look so different compared to someone who's got the same mask with no hair.
No,
Yeah,
100%.
that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I think I think that's cool though, and it must be like hearing you talk about like your mask having a lifetime is must be kind of scary because I suppose that's your face, right? Like if your mask is busted, then what? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Like your character
Yeah.
is so connected to that face that you develop over time.
I think if my mask like broke, or when it does break, I'm gonna buy the same mandala mask and have the same face. Whereas like there have been cases where someone's bought like a mask from someone and it's not lasted very long, and then they've gone and bought a mask from a different vendor, so obviously their face looks different.
Right.
But there's no like rules in it. Like you don't have to buy the same mask again. Just for me personally, like I would do that because I have that connection to that face. But then for some other people, they've done that and like they find that that mask was more comfortable and it suited their character better and things like that. So like it is weird. It's almost like it's weird because you get very personally attached to your kit anyway. Like I made a lot of my kit as well, so I'm like extremely attached to it. And so like I feel like the mask is like it just gets like this really strange, weird personal thing that you get like really like, well, me anyway, at least you get kind of like really like protective of, and you're like, yeah, that's my face. Whereas like I don't know, it might not be the same for some people, but like me personally, I'm like it's another limb of my body, my mask.
Mm-hmm.
That made me sound well weird.
No. That doesn't sound. I definitely maybe that sounds weird to other people, but I'm that far in now that sounds perfectly reasonable to me. I fully understand what you're talking about, and I actually find that's like I think that's pretty cool. It's interesting. I remember we were rushing to put on our tattoos because we had woke up late to go to battle or something, whatever the dumb reason was. As any good Navarre should do, is wake up late and then rush down to the battle. But I remember being like, no, it has to be. My tattoos have to be right, dude. You know what I mean? Like, don't. We got to get. If it isn't, it goes left, not right, and it goes straight under my eye. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it was like to the point of being very, very pernickety about it. So I can only imagine what it must be like with the mask and the kind of connection that you have with that. In mask, let's face it, masks in general are a fascinating device in loads of different cultures anyway, right? And different cultures. Well, that sounded awful. I mean, all cultures have kind of masks, right? So
I mean, even in Empire, you've got is it the Brasco's Festival? It's like Halloween, and they all no,
is it
it's
the
not.
League?
It's the League. Yeah, is it the
Oh
Festival
my
of
god!
Dead?
I knew an answer to something.
I was gonna say,
Yes.
League are very heavy on masks, guys.
Yeah, and like there's this whole different like thing on why they wear masks. I know obviously in character we're not wearing masks, but it just shows you like how much that translates if like it's starting to leak into the game that way.
Yeah.
It makes me think of in the Planet of the Apes, right? Like they were filming the Planet of the Apes, and everyone got given randomly assigned ape masks. Okay, and then during lunch, all the gorillas would sit there with the gorillas, and the orangutans would sit with the orangutans. I think like our dress is something that really, be that with the Navari tattoos or with other all the nations have their signifiers, but I think a mask is an incredibly strong one to really create a bond between your forces, right, as a nation.
Yeah.
It's quite a small nation as well, isn't it, the Orcs?
I mean, last time we checked it was, but like even in the time that I've watched it like maybe double or even triple in size.
Yeah, I think when I first came along, when I think it was maybe like 2 events after you, Chloe, I think we were pushing like about 70 people, and at least the last event I remember being on like 110, maybe
Yeah,
plus.
yeah, it's insane, and
People
it's
are taking that leap.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see as well, because like I do think like, and I mean, I started LARPing when I was 20 and now 25, pushing on 26. So I've been doing it for a while now. When I first came to LARP, I played a Windsmarker and got brought along by a friend, and I didn't really know anything, and I just sort of turned up and was like, oh, yeah, LARP. And then I kind of, more I got into it, the more I was like, I really want to go be an orc, but it seems really hard, and they're all really intimidating because they all look so good, and the wearing the mask was really scary. And I think I took that plunge, and I was like, I am never leaving this nation ever again. Like, if I die, I'm re-rolling as an orc, and that's it. This is it. This is my nation.
I think there's something really special about the orcs at Empire, and just having them on the field is something that really adds something to the entire ambiance of Anvil and an Empire event. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about. Oh, actually, that reminds me. Kids, right? Like, orcs
What
have
are
a
my
thing
things?
about. Well, they're small people.
Oh, that's what they are.
Who haven't
Right.
been around as long as larger people usually. So so I remember like the cutest thing at Empire is seeing little kids interacting with orcs, because it's like all the orcs are like set on like really nice to kid mode all the time whenever I see them at Empire.
That's because that's in our brief. Our
Right.
brief is to be
Yeah.
nice to little kids and to be friendly, and it's the kind of idea that if there's an orphan or anything like that, we can take them in and look after them as one of our own. So it's kind of a built-in thing that we will go down and we will do a lesson with the kids, or the kids will come up and watch the pit fights and stuff like that. It's just a built-in thing for us as characters that we are.
Are you
I-
the kids come along to the pit fights?
Yeah,
Oh,
I got my ass handed to me by a very tiny Varushkan girl whose name I believe was Trash Panda.
Yep, Trash Panda.
Uh, and she absolutely whooped my ass, and she was amazing. And did I let her win? Who knows? Every time I see this little girl now, I'm always like, "Hello, how are you?" And like, Aurora is friends with a little Varushkan girl because she like it's just, again, like Sammy's saying, it's part of the brief. But I also think as well, like, you take away from part of that, and if you think as an adult, a child could be very scared of you if they don't really know what's going on.
Well,
And so like
it's better than
putting
the
on
brief.
that-
It's better than the brief being the other way around, right? Like that.
Yeah,
Like
imagine
all orcs have to go
like
around scaring
children.
kids. Like Jesus, imagine.
Yeah, I think as well, like children at LARP already are probably very imaginative because they're in a LARP situation, but I think like it could be very scary for children. So I think if you kind of say, "Hey, look, we're friends," and like, it's all good, like that's really positive for them. But again, going back to the whole them coming to the pit fighting thing, like I think the kids are also really fascinated by orcs because they're so different, and they're just like, "Whoa."
Well, that's why you have like mascots, right? And like kids, I always talk to my friends about when they have little kids about when their kids meet mascots. I'm like, do they know it's a mascot or do they think it's real, right? And that blurring between real and imaginary is so strong when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sammy, I like the way that you when you said Trash Panda, you sounded like within reverence of it, like it's a real name that you respect in the pit fighting scene.
Oh yeah, no, Trash Panda is definitely one of the tippy top of
yeah.
fighters.
she's a little queen.
Like 8-time, I don't know, like I like the way in WWE that is like the more times you win a title, the better it is, and I love that
Yeah.
as a concept. So you can win it like 30 times or whatever. It's so good.
Yeah, like it's one of those things that we try and encourage. Like, when people come and watch the pit and want to be a part of it when they're kids and stuff like that, because it's also our chance to teach them a big part of our culture. Not only from the more physicality side of it, but also from the spirituality side.
I was gonna hold off talking about pit fighting till like late on. I had in my mind like, like the last bit we'll talk about pit fighting, but let's just get straight into it because I'm fascinated, right? I haven't seen it yet. All I've heard is like the yelling because the Navarre camp is in the woods with where the orcs camp. So from a distance, I can see into the camp, and I could kind of see a pit fight going on, but I've never seen one up close. Like, please talk me through it. Talk me about like an OC point of view, then an IC point of view. Then talk to me about like an OC, how it actually works. Like I'm fascinated. Please tell me everything.
Sammy, do you want to cover the pit fighting side, and I'll cover the spiritual shaman side, since you know way
Yeah.
more about this than me?
Yeah, sure. Do you want to go for the spiritualist side first?
Okay, yeah. So obviously, orcs have ancestors, and most orcs only hear their ancestors in times of sort of like intense emotion, so like fear or anger or adrenaline. And obviously, pit fighting, it'll get your adrenaline up, it'll get your fear up, you get really up in your feels, and then you hear your ancestors. And for some people, they kind of need that clarity, or they need to kind of hear from their ancestors because there's something troubling them. And shamans, which is obviously what Aurora is, I play, we hear the ancestors all of the time. And then so when we get really emotional, all of the voices get louder and more intense, and they kind of do that to like almost, I mean, this is just from Aurora's point, but she does it to kind of ground herself a little bit. So there's a lot of sort of like, it's almost, I guess the best way I've ever heard described it, the pit is like our church.
Okay,
It's a very
okay.
spiritual place.
Let me just go into that a little bit because that's
Yeah.
really interesting. Like, do you? So when you're RPing this, do you say what you're hearing? Like, are you possessed, or do you
No.
translate
No.
what people are saying? Like,
So
how does that work?
okay, so everyone experiences their ancestors differently. A really, really good example is some people are very vocal when they are sort of like really up in the ancestor zone. Aurora isn't. Aurora is known for being incredibly quiet and very internal with a lot of these things. So, like, a good example is there was a effect that was put on us a few events ago, and it meant that we could hear the ancestors a lot. And
I
a lot of
remember
the
that. Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of the other shamans were getting very angry and very aggressive, and fighting and kicking off, and Aurora was just sat in the corner having a little cry, just because that's how she deals with things. So it's not like you're possessed. It's like you've got a Bluetooth earpiece in,
Mm.
and you can hear it.
Like your nan's sitting next to you, just chatting on, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but you can't reply to the ancestors. You can only hear them, and it's up
oh,
to
that's
you.
some bullshit. So you don't even get to like,
Yeah, no, it's only a
what's that?
one-way phone line.
What's the is it the Sixth Sense or whatever? The one with the little kid and Bruce Willis. So you can't even talk back. That's kind of
No,
lame.
it is purely that, and I think like like again, like I don't want to assume everybody, because everyone plays their characters differently. I'm just kind of going off my personal experience here. Like for Aurora, like sometimes she'll use it to like ground herself, because like she's going a bit crazy because she constantly has voices in her head, and like sometimes she like the line between like what's real and what isn't slips for her. And so like the pit really like helps her kind of like rein herself back and like be like, yes, no, I am in this moment, like I am still here. Like some of the things my ancestors are saying are wrong. I shouldn't do those things, they're bad, because they're my angry sort of like slave ancestors, and they hate humans, and I don't hate humans, I like them. And the pit does that for her. So like I'm not a pit fighter, or sorry, Aurora's not a pit fighter, I'm not either. But she does do pit fights because it's really important for her. Whereas like again, like there's different reasons why orcs pit fight, but like it isn't just us beating each other up. Like there's this very deep sort of like spiritual meaning to all of it. And like I feel like a lot of people don't know that. They just think, oh, the orcs are all tough, they're all fighting. It's nothing to do with that at all. Like it's a little bit. It's a little bit about showing you your brawn and stuff. But I mean, I feel like this is a good way to segue into Sammy's part of the pit, which is a whole different side of it as well.
Yeah. So pit fighting is originally from literally fighting in a pit. So when we were slaves, uh, we would fight in pits. We weren't technically allowed to back in the very beginning of all of it, but it was a way to settle arguments, a way to settle disputes. It wasn't, the fights weren't to the death. They were till someone couldn't stand anymore, and they had to yield. You blast forward 60 years, you know, we are now fighting each other for disputes, but also um, not necessarily for the glory, because that's a Dornish thing. We would never fight like that. Um,
Obviously.
uh, but what we do is we're fighting each other to settle disputes, to let the ancestors know we are there, to help bring those voices too. So it's kind of like, it's the best way to put it. You need a shaman and you need pit fighting. You can't have one without the other. So they kind of need each other to be able to work in harmony for everyone to feel those effects of the ancestors coming down.
And when you're so a shaman hears the ancestors all the time. So when you're making a pot of tea or any of those stuff, you can hear ancestors. But for other orcs, you might potentially, and not this isn't a hard fast rule for everyone, while you're in the actual pit itself or under deep stress, you will also hear ancestors. Is
Yeah.
that correct? Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty much.
So if you think of like the pit as an amplifier,
Mm.
so
I like that.
the louder you get those crowds to scream and shout and cheer, the louder the ancestors have to be to get through to you as a person, and it builds up energy. It builds up that aggression to keep on going. It's why a pit fighter will only ever yield if they literally cannot go anymore. They're on that brink of just passing out, because all of that feeling from the ancestors is hitting them. And that's what's keeping them going. It's what makes them fight harder in the pit. So when you see someone, get thrown around and stuff like that, it's why you'll see them get back up again and try to keep fighting for as long as they can.
So, and I assume people have different relationships with their ancestors, right? Like, or is there a kind of, does everyone seek their wisdom? Like, what is that relationship kind of like? If I'm not touching too much on an icy thing here.
I don't know, to be honest. It's interesting because I think everybody does definitely have their own way of interpreting the ancestors, and I mean, in theory, we, the player, choose our ancestors, and we choose kind of who they are and what they say, like obviously within reason of being in brief. So, like for example, Aurora, she's heavily at battle with hers, but I know a few people who are sort of on the same level as them in a certain way. Obviously, not like the whole kill all the humans stuff, not that. I mean, a lot of the older orcs as well, like their ancestors would be very different to like the ancestors that like me and the younger orcs might hear as well, at least as far as I'm aware.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool.
I don't know, Sammy, what would you say about that? Have you got anything to add?
I would just say we all play it a little bit different. We all hear different things. Some people are very personal. Some people are very, shouting crazy crap. People play it differently, and that's all what breaks it down to more of an individual thing.
I think that must be quite an intimidating thing for a new player to kind of find their voice effectively. And to see how they interact with those ancestors. It's cool though. Does this manifest itself in battle then?
Yeah, when the adrenaline's going, when you're fighting hard, it kicks in. It is genuinely like whenever you think that your body's going to get a hit of adrenaline, that's when they're coming. That's when they're going to speak to you.
Yeah, that's literally the perfect way of explaining it.
Yeah, where as a non-shaman, is literally whenever that adrenaline hits your blood.
Well, there's a few times that you get adrenaline when you're not fighting and you're doing other stuff, which might be a bit awkward to hear your grandma come along and give you advice or whatever.
All right.
I mean, I've never asked that question, but I've just always assumed that would be how it is. But then I also play a shaman, so I'm getting that left, right, and center anyway, regardless if I'm having a cup of tea or whatnot.
Right.
It's all a little bit awkward for us, really. We don't tend to talk about that element.
No, yeah, I'm embarrassed I even brought it up. Like,
it's fine.
Okay, remind me to like edit that part out of the podcast, right? So
all I can think of is babies for Grud now.
Oh, babies for Grud.
Back in the old days, babies for Grud.
What is babies for Grud?
Oh my god, Sammy! Oh my god. Basically, right. I wouldn't put this in the actual podcast, but our old egregore, who was called Grud, just used to go around saying babies for Grud to try and build the legions. It was just like, oh my god.
So it's the idea of so obviously every nation has an egregore, and our egregore is called Grud, and Grud wants to see our nation grow and get bigger. So babies for Grud was pretty much his way.
I understand what you're saying now. It's like it's an invitation for people to express themselves with each other to create more babies for the nation.
For Grud, yes.
For Grud, yeah. Yeah,
that
for
hasn't
Grud.
been said. That hasn't been said for like ages. I think someone
know,
said it
right?
to me once when I got married, and that was it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're married. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I am. I
Yes.
know. We've been married for like almost 2 years now.
Yeah, congrats.
I got married on Goose Whisper, and
Oh,
probably not the
do
best decision I've made, but I love my husband very much. So it's good.
I absolutely hate mine, but you know. Actually,
Oh,
Sammy, should we talk about how like the pit gets used for like rituals and like the wedding as well, and weddings
yeah.
actually, because it's been more than one. That might be quite a good thing to touch on.
Yeah, it's not just all about the blood and guts and the cheering and things like that. It's also used for spiritualistic style stuff. I'm not massively a part of that, but I do tend to kind of anything goes on in the pit. I'm just like, what's going on? Like, bopping my
My
little
pit.
head around the place. I literally like a little Chihuahua dog. Like, I'm just thinking, I've been around a Chihuahua for like the last couple of days, so I'm just imagining my head moving around like that. Um, but yeah, it's pretty much it's not just blood and guts, it's spiritual side. Marriages happen there, ceremonies happen there. You also have the more ceremonial fighting as well, but that's not
Mm.
really what we're going on to now. We're talking about weddings. Chloe, you got
Oh, hi! I did. Well, I was gonna quickly nip in before and say that, like I obviously am in a winter coven. We do winter rituals. That's kind of my main jam. And we do a lot of rituals in the pit because it obviously has that such big spiritual sort of attachment to us. So, like I've done several rituals in the pit and it kind of helps, and like it's quite a good place to do it. It kind of gets
Can you
everything
give,
flowing.
because I don't think we've really gone into this, can you give an example of what a ritual might look like, right? Like what actions you would take with other people and what generally how you would approach doing a ritual?
I can give you an example of a ritual that my coven do. Again, it is so different because obviously the briefs with Empire are either really specific or really narrow. There's no in between. And rituals are generally quite, you can do whatever you want as long as it sort of makes sense. So a good example one we do is Clarion Call of Ivory and Dust, which is, I believe, a military buffing unit, not to get sort of too icy with it. And the way we sort of have a little format for rituals, so it's me and then my coven leader, who is Bloodcrow Satesh, we sort of do the rituals together. And we sort of start off going like, my name is Bloodcrow Aurora. I call upon the ancestors to witness me do magic. Obviously, you don't say magic, you say whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah.
And then if it's relevant, call on an eternal. If it's not, you don't. So we'll do that. We'll call on the relevant people, and then we'll sort of explain why we're doing the ritual. And obviously, I practice winter magic, and even this might not become knowledge, but everything with winter has a price. So we sort of discuss that, like, there's a price for this ritual. Like, do you accept that price? And the person normally says yes.
You're the hungry lot, aren't you?
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So our lineages is Draugrs is the winter one. But the way I describe winter magic is it's a very powerful magic, but it does always come with a price. Like nothing is free, and the more you want, the more it takes.
That's how
So
magic should be.
yeah,
In all things, I like that.
like the plane of winter is very harsh, very scarce, but it's very, very powerful, and like living there is difficult, but it kind of has a reward and stuff like that.
Oh, we didn't actually mention it, but you need a referee there. If you're
Oh
doing a
yes, sorry, I
ritual.
completely
That's the
forgot.
thing.
Yes.
No, it's like I asked you a question about RP, and that was you answered that question.
Yeah, no,
It
obviously
was
you
my fault.
always
I
need a
should have asked you.
ritual. You always need to have your mana ready beforehand. You need to know your player number as well, which is really useful. So I've got mine written inside a book that I carry
Yeah,
around with me everywhere.
exactly. And if you're
Um,
unsure, go and find a referee and talk to them, and they'll be
they're
able to help
always
you out.
super, super helpful, super useful, very
Yeah.
friendly people.
You just
Honestly, yeah.
I love how I love the
Oh,
idea of them doing that for the weekend as well. Is they walk around and occasionally people will come up to them and go, "Hey, would you mind coming over and looking at a ritual for us?" And then they get to have a front row seat to whatever wacky shit like people are coming up with for their rituals.
I feel like it's a lot of fun. I mean, some of our rituals get a bit spicy. There's lots of stabbing involved. There's some fake blood sometimes.
Are we?
Again,
I'm in
Winter,
Navarre.
Christ.
We have a bunch of blood magic in Navarre.
Oh, I
Like,
love a good bit of blood magic, me. Although it's slightly
the
frowned upon, I'm absolutely about it. It's my jam. Is blood magic.
yeah, it's a Navarre thing through and through.
But yeah, and then we'll do the price. I don't want to say what it is. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's not like sooner. And then we kind of round up the ritual, and I like the price has been paid. Blah blah blah. This is the ritual over. You kind of say it's over. You dismiss everyone that's like all the ancestors and stuff, and that's kind of how we do it. And it sort of runs along that same pattern of you call your ancestors, you state your purpose, you do your sort of like physical what's the word, like your kind of representation, your role play of like the action, like what you're doing, like are you buffing a military unit, are you doing a herb garden, are you freezing something, and then you kind of do that, say the price has been paid, and then kind of round it off. That's how our coven does it. I obviously
I
can't
think
speak for other covens.
I like the ritual game in the same way that I am interested in the healer game, where there's a lot of kind of like creativity that you can add to whatever you're doing. And
Definitely.
really interesting to see what different groups, how they approach it and what's possible, because I'm sure my limited imagination is very, very basic. But my experience so far with rituals has unfortunately been kind of like the Sunday. It's an hour, maybe an hour and a half before timeout. You're running around trying to find a referee just so you can do this thing that you should have done it earlier, but you didn't get round to it. And I haven't given the the time and respect that I think some rituals deserve.
I mean, yeah, sometimes you do have to slip in a cheeky ritual before you go, but like I feel like for my group, we're already so heavy in the role playing another species that kind of the rituals kind of come with it. And like I've seen some really cool stuff. Like it's insane, like what people do. I mean, you could, if you wanted to, just sit and read loads of stuff. But why not? Like, why not go really silly with it? Why not start getting out the fake blood and stabbing each other and stuff like that? Like, why not just go absolutely ham with it?
This leads me on to another thing, actually. Drums. I can't help but think of drums when I think of the orcs. Like, you guys get buck wild with that shit. Like, from the outside, it sounds insane.
Sammy, take it away. This is definitely your territory.
I mean, I love playing on the drums. It's so. I mean, you can see it when, like, we would do it in the pit, whether it be for a ceremony, like wedding stuff like that, or it's also for fighting. It's that kind of like a call to arms. So you start playing the drums, other orcs are going to hear. They're going to come see what's going on. You've also got hitting the drums as loud as you can to make the ancestors hear you. And then also it's just a lot of fun just to beat a drum. Not gonna lie. So yeah.
Well, you're also a drum for hire as well, aren't you, Sammy?
Huh?
You're a drum for hire.
Oh, that was like the weirdest role play in the world.
You're a merc? Drummer merc?
Excuse me, he's a paid musician.
The first time was a lot of fun. The second time I was just getting really dodgy looks and I was like, nah, I'm good.
That first time it was at Senate Motions, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Was that when I went as well?
I think you went the second time because I was told by my warlord at the time that I didn't have a choice and that I needed to play the Senate Motions. I was there for about 10 minutes. Everyone looked at me like a massive weirdo, and I was like, "I'll take my drum and go home now."
Was that the Senate Motions after the wedding?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh my goodness! All I remember is Prunk just keep coming out of nowhere with chocolate biscuits while we're trying to dance.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
We were dancing and just suddenly a chocolate biscuit would appear.
We had Tim Baker on, and I didn't ask him about Senate motions, and I really wish I had, because it's something that I actually kind of want to. I really want to attend when I actually get to go to Empire again.
Especially if loads of orcs go. It's so funny watching orcs trying to do it.
It really.
Why?
Is. Have you ever seen people wearing costume that weighs more than them trying to move around a dance floor?
No, but I would like to.
It's magical.
Music.
It sounds like a really good time. Oh, we should say Senate Motions is how would you say a dance place where you dance?
It's effectively dance lessons, isn't it?
Yeah.
They teach you to do like effectively ballroom dancing, I guess, but the people that teach it do actually generally a really good job, and like it is quite enjoyable. Like even from like an out of character experience, it's a lot of fun.
It's basically if you want to take a character on a date, then
Oh no.
then look no further than heading down to some old dancing at the Senate Motions.
Yeah, and you could do what I did and make it your first dance after your wedding, even though there is literally no orc wedding traditions at all. We did
It's
that.
true. Your husband definitely enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that's where the chocolate biscuits kept coming out. If you want, actually, we can talk about the wedding if you want. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if people want to hear about
Go
it.
ahead. Absolutely.
Basically, my character married someone called Pale Richter's Crunk, and I don't want to. Yeah, I won't get too into character about it, but basically, I think there's been one other orc wedding that I'm aware of, and there aren't really any traditions about it. So the whole thing kind of was a joke that kind of ended up with a marriage. It's a whole long thing, and we kind of decided, okay, let's do it. Let's get married because there are no wedding orc traditions. So let's start one, I guess, or maybe see what happens.
Yeah.
So we effectively decided that it had to be in the pit. We were going to involve both parts of the character's thing. So like Crunk is a pit fighter, so there was pit fighting involved, and I do magic and I love curses, so there was a curse involved.
How long was the ceremony?
You know what? I only think it was about 20 minutes to half an hour. If I remember rightly, it kind of started off with a speech from a shaman, and then we kind of, because we didn't want it to be like any actual traditional wedding, like it wasn't sort of what you would see as a normal wedding, and we basically did a bit about talking about the union between, it was more the two banners rather than the two people. And
like
then
a political wedding almost.
sort of kind of, it was more about the joining of banners and strengthening bonds rather than like, oh, we're going to get married for this reason. It was more just like, these banners have a good relationship, let's kind of solidify that as a symbol. I'm probably going to get told for saying this now anyway, so okay.
I mean, let's be honest, it was more along the lines that you and Zach are a great comedy act together.
Oh, we are not like out of character. Me and the person that plays Crunk, our friend Zach, dynamic duo, 100%. And it would just, and our characters have that same kind of banter, and they kind of are friends, but they sort of don't like each other, and they always try and beat each other in pit fights, and sometimes one will win, and sometimes the other will win. But there is sort of that mutual understanding of like, actually, we do really care about each other, and it's completely not romantic at all.
Yeah, my husband is my bants bro. Like,
yeah, it's not a romantic wedding at all. The characters aren't in love with each other; they just care about each other. And the banner.
Me and Callum really enjoy each other's company, and we really like RPing with each other.
It's
but we might
marriage.
And it's like we bump into each other like 3-4 times in the weekend, and just really have a good time when we see each other and be like, whatever. So, it's a really good time, and I joke around with it, but genuinely, I think having an icy husband is great. So.
Yeah, well, it's definitely given me like more things to roleplay. Like we did a stag do and a hen do, which was loads of fun, and then the wedding was like a really cool bit of roleplay, and like a lot of people were there, and like there was fights and curses and lots of stabbing, and it was very sort of like words. It was very symbolic of sort of like the nation, and like we didn't say that's how you had to get married. That's just how we got married, and like if it became a tradition, that would be really cool. But then if it didn't, it didn't. But we just were like, oh, this is still quite new. Like. Orcs can get married. There's nothing stopping us. Just no one's really done it yet. So we were like, why don't we do it?
I think this is one of the nicest things about Empire is these little gaps in the lore where people can start traditions that become a real thing within the game. I love that about Empire.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the highlights of my like role-playing career. I think just because so many people were involved, it was planned out. It was very symbolic. It was lots of fun, lots of cool fighting, and like it's gonna bring, obviously this was at E4 if I remember rightly, so the last event we had,
it was,
so it's gonna bring so much more into like Aurora's life, and like so many more role-playing opportunities, and like it just kind of builds on more as a character, and like it was cool. You should definitely get LARP married. It's an experience.
The only thing better than getting LARP married is getting LARP killed. That's the best. I recommend it to anyone.
I feel like I enjoy getting married more, but each to their own.
Hey,
no judgment.
I know a lot of people that a little bit of death would do them a lot of good.
Just a cheeky bit of death.
Just a little bit, not too much, but yeah. Like my friend Ian, who I do the podcast with, he's called down the new Kit Curse gods. Like he's asking for so much trouble that I worry about his safety a lot. You know, it's
I
gonna
mean,
suck when he dies.
I love chaos. Aurora always will choose the most chaotic option possible.
This is
Like,
true.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's not necessarily Aurora, it's me, and I'm like, someone will do something, and I'm like, what's gonna cause the most chaos, or like, what's gonna be like the thing that causes like the biggest reaction, and I'll do that thing. Like, it might not be the right thing, but I'm like, hold on, this will cause a massive reaction. Let's do this. It's like a child with a giant red button, and they're like, don't press the button, and Aurora's like, I'm gonna press that button, and just slams it down.
Yeah, but isn't that like you were saying? Like it's probably part of your personality. Whenever I try and come up with a character, even if they're like totally different from who I am as a person, I'll suddenly realize, like into a session, like in D&D or a LARP, where I'll suddenly realize that I am hyper focusing on a certain part of my personality and like processing parts of who I am. So it's like it's amazing how RP can really exacerbate certain personality types, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I love that. Like, every character I've played's definitely been a different aspect of my personality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about you, Sammy?
Um, well, to be fair, like this is I've been LARPing a really long time, but this is actually my first ever character. Like because I was always like monstering and behind the scenes. So when I came to Empire, it's my first character. So
Wow.
he pretty much is me. Like
Yeah.
just with everything turned up a little bit. But yeah, then that goes into what we were talking about earlier with wearing a mask and having that level of anonymity to be able to be super charismatic or be slightly louder than I would most probably normally be, or be slightly aggressive if the term, I'm a very, calm, chilled out guy. But if
Yeah, you are.
my character would go more aggressive in a situation. So I would say, yeah, it's just me turned up to 11, really.
Yeah, I think that's something so great about it, though, that I think RP generally gives you a little bit of a barrier between you and reality that gives you enough wiggle room to really kind of express parts of your personality. This might sound crazy if you're a new LARPer, by the way, when it seems a lot scarier, but that will pass after an event or two. And then I think you kind of get a bit of free reign to express yourself a bit, in that space.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Sorry, go on.
Sammy.
Go on, no, you go.
I was going to say, how deep can I get with this?
As deep as you possibly want to go, yeah.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I used to suffer really badly with social anxiety, like really, really badly. And I honestly found, again, just my personal experience, coming to LARP really, really helped me with that, like so much. And I know it sounds really silly because I was running around with a mask and not showing my face. But since I've started LARP, I've become so much more of a confident person, and I have built people skills and learned sort of like how to kind of surpass a lot of the stuff that was going on in my head. And like honestly think for me, LARP has really, really helped me with sort of like a lot of my mental health issues. It got me through some really, really hard times in life. And I know it's a little deep, but LARP is different to everybody. But for me, it's a very personal thing, and it's helped me through so much.
Chloe, you're not the first person to say that. I would completely relate to what you're saying. I'm sure Sammy is about to agree as well, right? Like everyone.
To be difficult, I'm going to say no.
Okay, well,
Damn
fine.
it, Sammy.
Be that guy, Sammy.
No,
But
I do agree.
yeah,
I do.
yeah, and it's like, but I always try and be careful on the podcast and say like, it isn't therapy. It isn't professional help, right? So there's and there has to be a difference in that thing. So when we talk, and we talk often and passionately about like the healing effects and sometimes how it can give you a safe space to kind of test your boundaries in. I always say that with a caveat that it isn't it isn't that thing, but it can
it's
help
not.
you.
It's sort of like, obviously, like again, I will happily talk about this. I'm very open about it. Like I did have to go through a lot of therapy, but it was really nice knowing that if I was having a bad week, I've got Empire next week, or just taking a break as well, just from real life for like 3 days does you wonders. And like, yeah, no, it's not a cure all, but it's kind of that nice pat on the back that really sort of just helps push everything along. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think like the kind of when I've the way I kind of think about it is it's like when you watch I think that an example would be if you watch a horror movie and you like, why would people want to watch a horror movie where you are simulating being scared? I think watching a horror movie, despite how scared you can get sitting on the couch, that no one's actually going to go and stab you, right? But it kind of helps you process fear in some way.
Mhm.
And I think RP does something similar where you can RP situations, interactions, intense moments, and really kind of like learn a lot about yourself. And that it doesn't necessarily mean it's always all good. Specifically, one time there was an opportunity for me to step up and take a position of to become a sergeant in a squad for a battle, and I completely hesitated and froze, and it's so unlike my personality to do that, but it really, even that, which I would consider to be a loss, was incredibly educational and taught me a lot about how I am outside of LARP, right? Because that's still part of my personality, and it was a nice little opportunity to be like, huh, I did hesitate then. Why did I do that? Do I do that in other things? And then it kind of just gave me a little pat on the back to kind of go forward and be a little bit more confident in other ways,
I love that. I actually think that is the perfect explanation, and I love that. And it's interesting because a lot of people don't get laugh or might think, oh, it's a little. How can it be that deep? But I feel like when you get into it, like it really can have that kind of deep, meaningful impact on your life. I
RP's
love it.
RP's only weird until you do it, and then suddenly it's like
Oh, it's
anything
still
else.
weird, but it's like the good kind of weird, which is my vibe. So
Yeah, but it makes you like bore down deeper into it. Like
does.
we're gonna start I probably, yeah, I'll say we're starting a new roleplay podcast, and yeah, I'm going on a hard out, like really deep dive into RP at the moment, and I'm itching to get back into LARP, so I can
Same.
use some of the stuff that I've learned over this process on the field. Like I cannot wait to try and be more character and less Dave, or at least
I love that.
yeah.
I'm excited. It's gonna be sick.
Yeah, yeah. Sammy, how do you feel about your relationship with your character? Like, like, what if something happened to your character, Sammy? How would you feel about that?
So my character, like I've gone on like record because obviously like with like the YouTube channel and stuff like that and other interviews when all people have asked me, like I've gone in very detail. Like my character is kind of is achieved the goals that I always wanted as a child. Like I am like seen as like a fighting champion and this, that, and the other. Um, if he was to, for example, die at the next event, I reckon it would suck, but because of my years of doing monstering and stuff like that, I don't think I have that attachment where a lot of other
Oof.
people would do.
Careful, Sammy. This will be a very interesting conversation to have if your character takes a hit, man. I think that would be
Okay.
fascinating to see it before and after.
But it's that thing of like if if he goes, like it is going to suck because I've enjoyed tremendously the time I've had playing ball and the people I've met, and having to restart is going to suck.
Do you have
Um,
Do you have a second character in mind?
no, not
No.
really, because
Oh,
the idea is that if if I do go, like I've thought about this, if I do go, gonna stop, take a deep breath, and then just pick what I want to do next,
mhm.
because there is so much of this game I haven't played yet, and I
Yeah. Would
think
you go for a nation change, or would you stay in the Orc? Do you
mm,
think?
I would stay where I am
Yeah.
because I have so many strong connections on an out of character level with all of the people in the Orcs. Like I've become really good friends. I mean, Chloe is a prime example. I have a group chat with Chloe and our other friend Zach that we pretty much talk to every day, or we'll
Yeah.
post some stupid meme or something like that. And I wouldn't really want to be too far away because I enjoy the role play with them.
Mhm.
But I would just pick another part of the game that I've never done before and just go, right, let's try and make some magic there. and see what happens.
Yeah, the orcs certainly do seem like a pretty tight knit bunch of people. Like I'm a very anti club type person. Like I'm not a joiner of groups, but weirdly I've kind of sleeper wade my way into joining groups at Empire that I'm extremely happy to be part of, and I am part of group chats, like you said, which is very unlike me usually.
Would this be a good segue to talk about like how close the nation is and why it works potentially?
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, a good example, I was like this weird little kid that kind of just turned up and was like, I want to be one of you guys. And I basically just accepted with open arms. And I think one of the things that makes the role playing of the orcs, I mean, the orcs are much sort of about sort of like bonding and being together, and sort of there's a lot of the things about like, and I don't want this to sound wrong, like physical touch. So like putting heads together is quite a big thing, or sort of holding hands in like a platonic way. Like there's a very big feeling of closeness, and I feel like the reason that works so well is actually out of character. Like we're all really good friends with each other. We all hang out all the time, and we all sort of got each other's back when things go wrong. And I think that kind of close knit relationship. And the thing is as well, like it's not just little groups. It's you're part of the nation, you're part of the friendship group. Come hang out with us. Like you're part of one of us now. Like we've got your back. Like you're our friend now. And I think that really really helps with like the role playing side of it as well. It's like we all care about each other so much outside of the game that inside the game it just gets amplified. I mean that's how I feel. I don't know if you feel the same way, Sammy, but I think that's definitely how I felt coming in.
I mean, I just hate everyone. So.
Oh my god, why do you have to ruin it for everybody?
No, sorry. No, no, I do agree. Like, obviously, people are going to disagree from time to time.
Yeah, but that's just humans.
That's just human natures. But
Yeah.
everyone looks after everyone because they know how hard it is. And this isn't. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm sitting here going playing an orc is the hardest thing in the world. Because hey, look, we all have different coping levels of what we're able to handle. But I think everyone in the orcs knows what the other person's feeling. With that, being really run down because you're having to wear a mask and all that heavy stuff all of the time. So people can empathize with you, and I think on that empathy level, people start to build friendships. And you look at it when I'm not sure if other nations do it, but on like a Thursday night. I was really blown away when I first started, but on a Thursday night, everyone went out for pizza. It's like,
Thursday's the best day, by the way. Like,
oh yeah,
Yes,
it's
100%.
such a good. I will always intend on going on the Thursday every time I attend an Empire event.
But
Yeah, I think that bond is like I'm not saying it doesn't exist in other nations. I think it can definitely be stronger in smaller nations
Yeah.
because it feels more fractured in the larger nations. Like we have a banner in our group that is probably half the size of the Orc Nation,
Oh
right?
wow.
You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like it's an entire so that's my mini nation within a nation, right? Like I don't know everyone in my banner extremely well, but I know my striding incredibly well. I'm sure it's very similar in the orcs where you have an understanding of the wider nation and then smaller, closer bonds within it,
Yeah, I mean, I would most probably recognize everyone in the nation by face, their normal face, because obviously we see each other all of Thursday and Sunday and stuff like that. So you kind of know each other like that. I don't think we're at that point as a nation yet where you're lost in the crowd. Like everyone knows everyone to a certain level.
Yeah.
So it's just that chance of being a small nation, you're being able to make those connections. Not obviously not saying being in a big nation is bad, but it for the answer of this question, being in a smaller nation does allow you to build up those friendships.
Maybe we should kind of go into if you're a new player and you want to approach playing an orc. Is there a kind of like checklist that you could maybe go through, some words of advice and how you can get from noob to field?
Yeah, honestly, there is a Facebook group, obviously, through Empire for the Imperial Orcs. All of the information on the different types of banners are there for people to look through, and obviously every banner is going to have a different feel, a different motif as such. So
Very nice.
sorry, go on.
That was very nice use of language there. Very
I
impressive.
know, right? I'm trying my best today.
It shows. It really does show.
I got out my dictionary and I picked it. Yay. No, it's there's so much stuff there to choose from. and it's worth, before building up this massive story in your head, it's best to work out where you're going to go first. And I would suggest before buying stuff as well, work out where you're going to go, and then start building the kit up from there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chloe, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just to add on to that, your kit will very much depend on what banner you go with. It's not like most nations where it's like you have a nation thing. It's like your banner is what dependent on what your kit's gonna look like. So if you do decide to join a banner or start your own banner, it's really important. So I'd say finding your banner or deciding to start a new one, because you can do that, is quite important.
Hold on. So does that mean that you are kind of encouraged to join existing groups when you first join, or set up your own group? Is that kind of because that dictates your dress? Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, I might, this might be wrong. It might be my brain having a moment. I'm pretty sure you want to be in a legion, because orcs that aren't in legions are not sort of seen very positively, and that's fine if you've been role playing for a while and you want to do that. But if you're coming into LARP very, very new, and you may, be new, may kind of need a little bit of help, which is fine. Everybody needs help. I would suggest joining a banner, because they'll be able to sort of help you with a lot of that stuff, which is what happened to me. I joined the Blood Crows because I was still very new to roleplay, and I was like, I'm going to need a bit of help. I couldn't start my banner or not even be in a banner because I just have no idea what to do.
I think that's really. I think it's interesting. Like, it's probably part of your character creation screen, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're all kind of individual, aren't they? So it's hard to tell.
yeah, they're all individual. They've all kind of like, it's a different color scheme. Like, the Ashbourne, the OG Ashbourne, should I say, not the Navarre ones. We're green, and Chloe's Blood Crow, they are brown.
I believe the term is shit brown,
Well,
but yes, brown.
I was trying to be polite, you see.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say it how it is.
Oh, all right, cool. And then you got people like the Iron Tide, that's more of a red. Obviously, you have the Red Hands that are red as well. You'll have all these different groups, and they've all got like significant colors and stuff like that. So it's definitely something to look into. And obviously, you can't really buy orc kit off the shelf.
Oh
No, I was gonna say, like, it feels. I remember I spoke to Matt about this, who's also on the Orcs Planet, the wonderful YouTube channel,
Go subscribe.
about how.
Thank you for the plug.
Yeah, we didn't actually plug on this episode. Yeah, well, there'll be a link in the description. The Orcs Planet. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, then you're probably aware of them. But that's what Sammy does, and it's a really great resource, and one of our kind of like our closest peer friends. There's a big love fest between the two.
We referred to it as like the weird Avengers.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god, the LARP Avengers.
Oh, I hate it. I'm not. I don't want to be involved at all. I want to retract my. I'll be.
Too late, buddy. It's too late.
Who wants to get out of the Avengers the most? I'll be Captain America. Oh God, no. Oh God, no. Sammy, no.
Digging
No,
the hole
Sammy.
deeper and deeper.
Oh, I hate it. Shut up, mouth. Oh,
because
shit. We'll never recover.
You've got us. You've got you. You've got Hefty.
Hefty.
And then obviously, like the channel that we run. Obviously, you've got Chloe, who's done so much work for us as well. So there's another backstory character from the Marvel universe that Chloe can come into play.
She's gonna get her own spin-off series soon on Disney Plus. So
okay, can I be low key? Because I'm loving the
you can.
series right now, and he is just beautiful. So
I don't know. It's like Ian is a shifty bastard, so he could definitely give you a run for money on that front.
Oh.
God. Oh, Sammy, why?
It's fine. Don't worry. I'm waiting for someone to actually like mock up a fake T-shirt of it. That's when you know we've made it.
What's this?
Yeah.
You need a fake T-shirt making?
Oh,
Is there anything worse than a LARP celebrity? Like, is there anything? It's
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. God, let's move on. Orcs.
We were talking about kit. I might be able to say something.
Yeah. Oh, let's talk about kit because how did you source your kit, Chloe, and how do you approach it?
Well, I guess to put this out on the internet. I used to be a cosplayer, and I kind of got into LARP through cosplay, and so I was already pretty nifty with like a sewing machine and stuff like that. And I started LARPing when I was a student, so I also had absolutely no money at all. So I just made all of my kit. But it's never that easy normally.
I think a cosplay is one of those Venn diagram hobbies that kind of like leads into LARP.
Yeah.
Like, and there's a whole bunch of them, like airsoft, reenactors, cosplay. But cosplayers come into the hobby with this huge wealth of knowledge about how to take something from their head or an image and try and make it into reality, which is a huge advantage on a lot of us who don't know anything about it.
I'm really lucky that I knew how to make my kit. Otherwise, like I would have had to have gone to. I mean, they're saying that there's so many talented people in the Orcs. Like, there's loads of people you can go to if you want kit. But I honestly do say try and make it yourself. If it's rubbish, the first attempt it's rubbish, but you still made it yourself. And actually, it probably isn't as rubbish as you think it does. I am a massive advocate for people making their own kit. I think everyone should give it a go.
Yeah, because I think don't orcs mend a lot of their clothes as well, or make their own clothes? And I remember talking to Matt about it because he had done something by hand, some stitching or something, and I said, "Wow, that's like it's a cool idea because you're kind of spending that time, so you're almost getting to know your own character better by performing the actions that they're performing in your downtime." I found that like a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
Actually, how I basically made my kit, I had an idea of how I wanted it to look in my head, and I was like, I'm going to do this how I think Aurora would do this. So it is on purposely really rubbishly stitched together. It is kind of covered in tat because she loves tat. I have a staff that I talk to called Debbie, who's my wife. And I kind of was like, right, how would at the time, 19-year-old orc make or mend or repair all of this stuff? Well, not very well because she's young and she doesn't really know what she's doing. And that's kind of how I approach my kit. So my kit effectively is a big old war skirt. It's probably like the length of my legs because I am about 5 foot tall. What I call the war dress. It's just a dress made of rags, but it's the war dress. That kind of goes on. Then you get the war skirt on, and then I've got like a little waistcoat that's all just made from like really badly sewn together bits of leather, and then a shawl also made from badly stitched leather with loads of like strips of leather and just stuff hanging off of it. And my kit's sort of very flowy and sort of stuff going everywhere. It's a bit chaotic.
I think what you just said then is like a really good approach to orc kit, which is weathering and like it not being pristine is totally fine. In fact, it helps, and layers. Layer upon layer upon layer of different stuff.
Yeah, no, especially like I think as well, like when you're making your kit, you want to be able to be really, really warm in it and also really, really cool in it, because like if it's like 20 degrees and you're wearing orc kit, my goodness, you are going to turn into a river. But also the flip side, when it gets cold, you want to be able to put things underneath or over to the top of your kit, which is something that I didn't learn for ages. So I've definitely make sure your kit's like maybe adjustable, so like belts, like kind of string tie fronts are quite good, so you can put more layers underneath and stuff like that. I think as well, the more layers you do, the sort of more kind of lived in and authentic and worn it looks.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I would like just to say for the record, Khloe is massively downplaying their kit. Their kit is actually amazing, especially since you've made all your alterations and stuff like that. Like, honestly, it is one of the best kits out there. It's incredible. And it really looks the part. Like
in fact, remind me, and I'll post some pictures on the LARP Noobs Facebook page. So if you want to come and look at them there, then if that's all right with you, Khloe.
There are slightly older photos. My kit looks slightly different now, just due to like the weight loss stuff. So I had to make my kit quite a lot smaller, so it looks a bit different. But yeah, I'll happily show my kit off, and that was very nice to say, Sammy. Thank you.
Yeah,
I don't want to seem like too about it.
I think this is funny though. People are very can be very bashful about their kit or can't see how good their kit is sometimes. And I think it's I think what's cool about someone with really good kit is there's obviously for the person that is wearing it's a good guide to help you get into RP if you're dressed in all the garb. But for other people, like you're just making the world like a more immersive, enjoyable place, right? And to be clear, that doesn't mean that if you're insecure about your kit, if you feel that it isn't up to a par, don't worry about it. Like,
Yeah.
it's completely fine. Just enjoy other people's kit. No one's judging you for yours, you know.
And if they are judging you, send them my way, and I'll give them a good telling off, because they shouldn't be judging your kit, because it's not up
Yes.
to them.
Well,
If you,
let's get that right. It's Debbie who will be telling.
yeah, Debbie will give you a right or telling off. We don't
Yeah.
do that. I think if someone has gone and spent ages making their war skirt and it looks good, it looks good. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, you know. And you're allowed to also not like your own kit. That's totally fine too.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I'm gonna say though is you will always be fixing and adding stuff to your kit, and like it's gonna be like a revolving door. So like you'll make one thing and then you'll make another thing, and then before you know it, your kit's completely changed. I think your kit evolves with you and your character as well. So
Yeah, hugely. I find like we mentioned this on a previous episode talking about gift giving and gift receiving can often help with your kit. Like Matt gave me a pendant, right? So I now wear that all the time. And I remember I walked up to the orc camp and I was by myself, which is a big no-no when you're approaching the camp and you're a human. And they said to me, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm here to see Skywise Fell." And they went, you know, by yourself. And I went, "What's he to you?" And I said, "Well, he's the man that gave me this." And I held up the pendant, and then suddenly they were like totally cool with me. It was like the best moment. It was like really cool.
Like, that probably was me being like, "Excuse me, mate, what do you think you're doing?" I'm always on the orcs, like kicking off at the gate.
I'm very used to it now, having like a couple of contacts in the orc camp. I haven't really been in that much, but like I'm very much used to having some bants with the doorkeepers. It's yeah, I like it.
That might be quite a good thing to talk about actually, is like the orc camp.
Yes, it's a character in its own right, right?
Oh my god. I mean, I don't know, Sam, I'm gonna let you start this one because I've spoken quite a lot.
No, it's fine. Well, I mean, the orc camp itself, yeah. I mean, you not only do you have the pit, you have the herb garden that's there, then you have all of the banners kind of camped around the center of the fire pit. That, to be fair, most evenings you will find some drunk orcs singing sea shanties and stuff like that. And yeah, it really is a character. I mean, when I first came to Empire, there was all these stories of like, oh, humans aren't allowed in unless they've got 2 people with them. Humans aren't allowed in if they've got weapon. It was all of these like mysterious unwritten rules, and it was just like, what's going on? And then when you actually get there and people actually inform you of what the situation is, you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. I get that now. So yeah, it is a character within itself.
Yeah, I think as well, like, there's certain people who I don't know if I'm going to say their names, I don't know if they're okay with it, who put so much effort into the upkeep of the camp and are the unsung heroes of the orc camp. And they put a lot of work in. I mean, they built loads of furniture for us as well when they go in a few days before and they make sure everything's tidy. And so, like, the camp is definitely kept up by a few sort of people who are sort of the unsung heroes, and they sort of do a lot of the set dressing, and it just, that little bit of attention to detail really like brings this camp together, and it makes it feel so real. Like,
Yeah, I think you're right. It feels like you're walking into a living space, right?
Yeah.
Like there's the details are they're practical, they're aesthetically pleasing, they're like it's just a really nice mixture of like decor and design that really works and adds to the whole flow of the camp, right? Because it's in a kind of big circle, isn't it? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of starting to leak down the back a bit because obviously we're getting more players, but it does have like a main sort of big
Chloe,
fire
that
pit with
is-
loads of bitch.
Chloe, that's the worst description ever. Leaking out the back of it is
Well,
not.
yeah, hear me out, right? So it is the back of the camp and it's going down a hill, and so it is leaking out. All right, I feel like that was a perfectly
And
good way to explain it. It's your minds that are turning it into something else. I run
Chloe,
that
is
respect my
it
words.
leaking out the back a bit towards where the toilets are? Is that where it
No,
is?
it's more towards where the Navarra, so basically
Oh.
the same thing.
Ooh,
Wow!
I'm so sorry, that was so mean.
Wow!
yeah, we did so well, Chloe. We got
I was really
an hour and a half
enjoying
into
this,
podcast.
and now you've ruined it, Chloe.
Look, okay, I came in for a good time, not a long time.
You're like now. I'm like all the Navarra like get her, Dave, get her. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, I don't want to do that. It's going to be mean. So I'm going to let that pass. I'm going to be the...
Also, like, not gonna lie, like, I would
bigger
not
Navarre.
mess with Aurora and Debbie. Like, those two are a force to be reckoned with. So...
Also, I should warn you that I regularly get offered by people to, like, is there anyone that you want murdered? And I'm like, no, there isn't. Well, if there ever is, you know, no, I don't want anyone to die. That's like a regular conversation I have with people in Navarre.
And then you slide them over a note, and you're like, "But this guy Gary, screw this guy."
This guy
Hey.
Gary.
Here's a list of guests I had on the podcast that need doing in. So
It is just Gary. It's always Gary.
Yep.
yeah, cool. Right, right, we're gonna. Yes, we are. We're gonna end it there. Because we're getting towards the end of our time, or at least the imaginary time that I put on these episodes. Is there anything that you wanted to maybe mention before we closed out on being an orc, or anything else?
It's pretty mint. Not gonna lie. I think this is probably for more someone who's never been to Empire. And if you want to play an orc, I would say definitely jump on the Facebook and chat to people. And I say if you already are at Empire and you want to become an orc, Thursday night, please come and talk to us. We're a really friendly bunch. We will be able to help you. And I'm being really honest, the orc camp is probably one of the most helpful groups of people I've ever bumped into. There'll be someone that can help you with probably anything. Like kit, mask, lore, you want to join a banner, just come along and say hi. We might look really scary, but we're generally quite a friendly bunch. Apart from Sammy, he's weird and smells funny. Stay away from him.
Yeah, it's not my fault. I was brought up in North London. What can I say?
I was brought up in West London. What's the point?
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Is there any call and answer things that you do that we could maybe close out the episode with? Okay, good. Well,
No,
I'd like
I
to
can think
say
of.
thank you very much, Chloe, for coming on, and also thank you, Tony Stark, for being on the podcast as well. We really appreciate both of you being here. So,
Oh, thank you for having us. It's been so much fun.
I'm Tony Stark now. Wow. Well, thank you very much for having us, mate. It was been lovely to finally get in on one of your episodes and be a part of this fantastic.
I know I didn't want to make you feel like we were missing you off, Sammy, because I really love your videos on the Orcs Planet, dude. So keep up the good work.
You've done everyone else on the planet. Now you're just left with me and Chloe, really.
Well, you know what they say, best till last.
Exactly.
Well, I think the last one we're going to do is Navarre, which will be the best till last.
Second best till last.
And
best till second last.
I am absolutely bricking it because I definitely need to do my research on my own nation. It's been really nice grilling everyone else on it, but now it's coming to crunch time. It's not good, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, thanks again, guys, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
We're down, and just in the nick of time. Where are the others?
Hey, over here! Hide quickly before they see you!
Everyone okay? Yeah.
Thanks to you three. Who knows what would have happened if you hadn't come?
Don't be scared, Ada. Daddy's here.
Father, I'm fine. What are we going to do now?
Aye. What's your master plan?
Plan? Well, I can only think of one place that might be safe. Follow me.